host, a mystical artist, and intuitive tarot reader. Now, as promised, I am launching off a series dedicated to new to tarot readers, those of you who are just starting your personal practice or are tarot curious, and also those of you who maybe have been reading for a while and just need a space to fall in love with it all over again and to breathe some fresh air and life into your practice and to your decks. So let's get started. Now, this series is essentially some basics and foundation work. However, I'm not crazy about that languaging because tarot is a personal practice. You will be invited to have a really personal relationship with your decks and your reading style and how you evolve and grow and bond with your decks and your practice. So I think I like springboard, that these episodes will be more of a springboard to spring you forward and deeper into your own practice and work with tarot. Now, the very first thing, in order to work with tarot, you're going to need a tarot deck. Now, I have people coming to me quite often, and I, jump into a lot of different social media platforms, and I read a lot of threads and concerns about people waiting for a deck to be gifted to them, waiting to be initiated by someone who maybe deems them worthy, or to have this moment where the universe or some sort of a mystical key is turned and you are able to open a door and step across a threshold into the realm of tarot because, again, someone has initiated you and handed you a key, aka your first deck. Now, this is all myth. There is no reason at all, especially in 2019 or in the future whenever this video finds you, for you to be waiting around days, months, years to be gifted or initiated into a tarot practice. Now, this myth about needing to be gifted a deck is rooted in reality, I'm assuming, rooted in how for a long time, and for some folks even now, it was dangerous to be caught with a deck, to use a deck, to be reading with the deck, to say that you were a reader. So because of the danger and the negative connotations, the myths that were circulating around what tarot is or isn't and what a reader is or isn't, there had to be a lot of secrecy. And so yes, when there is danger and secrecy is necessary, it makes sense that decks would start being handed down or across, right? From hand to hand, from person to person. And again, now there is little reason for most of us that we can't simply just step into our power, utilize our own agency, and go get a deck. Now, you might be wondering, where are you going to get a deck? There's a lot of avenues that you can take. You can, frankly, get a deck at many big box stores now, such as Barnes & Noble, at least the one in my neck of the woods. There's an entire aisle dedicated to tarot and oracle decks, which is saying that yes, tarot is becoming more mainstream, more accessible. There's a lot of the negative connotations and fears and misconceptions are starting to be dealt with. Now, of course, they're still out there and circulating, but big box stores, you could go on to Etsy and support small shop owners and independent deck creators. You can go to your local metaphysical store and interview decks. Now, some of the stores will actually have decks outside of the packaging, so you can hold them in your hand. For some of us, for some readers, a deck will light up for you in some way. For me, my hands get very sweaty and warm, and there's a lot of tingling. I do have a lot of bodily sensations when handling a physical deck, and that might be something that would happen with you if you were to engage in a deck that way. You could also order online. Many of the metaphysical stores have an online shop where you can kind of peruse their offerings, pick one, put it in your cart, have it mailed to your mailbox. Now, there's also sites that are dedicated to tarot. For example, Little Red Tarot is an excellent resource for going and simply drooling over many of the decks that are available. And you can select one or find one that really sings and speaks to you, and then locate it either locally or through another avenue that's best for you. Now, if you want something that's like the latest and hot off the presses, you could also go to Kickstarter and support a deck creator who is launching a deck or about to release a deck out into the world. So there's no reason, unless resources are an issue, to not get started with your tarot journey this week, whenever this video finds you. Now, if resources are an issue, and you are watching this through a screen, I'm assuming you have access to apps. You can go to your app store and find something that's called Fool's Dog. And through that, you can go down a rabbit hole. There's about 30, I think, different tarot decks that you would have access to purchasing and downloading. And you can start using your deck electronically or interviewing that deck, because you would be spending $3.99, which is a much different investment than what you would be spending on a deck. Decks typically run anywhere from about $20 to $70. Now, you might also be saying, okay, great. You've kind of given me permission to set this whole myth about waiting around for it to be gifted to the side. You've given me some starting points as where I can purchase a deck and invite a deck into my life. But now you're probably wondering, but which deck, Jess? There's so many. Once you start going down the rabbit hole, you'll start seeing that there's tons of decks, which is really exciting, because decks, art, a lot of times it can be problematic. When we are thinking about our decks, they have historically been not very inclusive or diverse. There's a lot of issues around cultural appropriation. The issues can go on and on. However, as a tarot community, that's being addressed more and more, which is another reason that you would want to go and get your own deck rather than waiting for it to be gifted to you. Wouldn't you like to, again, step into your own power and use your own personal agency to pick out a deck that speaks to your worldview? To pick out a deck where maybe you would see yourself in it. To pick out a deck where the art is so evocative that stories unfold, or is so symbolic that you can dive in, or is so maybe minimalistic and uncluttered that your intuition can do the rest. Now, so right there is kind of hinting to you that there's so many decks. Whatever your genre of art is that you just love, there's a deck for that. If you're into vampires, fairies, fantasy, pagan, earthy decks, if you're wanting medieval art, Renaissance art, futuristic art, if you're wanting robots, if you're wanting cats, if you're wanting animal decks, decks without people, decks with people. It goes on and on and on. There's so many decks out there. Now, I know from 12 years as a classroom teacher that some folks want permission to just go down the rabbit hole and find what serves them. Great, I would have students that are just give me a little taste of something, and then off they go. Some of them wanted things to be modeled for them, laid out step by step, to follow along, to kind of unlock and to build up their background knowledge. Some just wanted to be told what to do. And sometimes, frankly, I would do that to get somebody started, to get somebody unlocked. If you're somebody who easily gets overwhelmed and you just want to be unlocked and have someone say, get this deck, I would highly recommend starting with a very classic traditional deck, such as the Smith Rider-Waite, the Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm emphasizing the Smith because of the artist, Pamela Coleman Smith. This is such a classic deck. This imagery is oftentimes cloned in many other decks on the market. So if you wanted to start your tarot practice with, again, like some of the foundations or basics in terms of the symbology and the imagery and things like that, you really can't go wrong with the Smith Rider-Waite. Now, it may not make you sing. It may not light sparks under your fingertips and make your hands sweaty. It may not make your heart race. That kind of deck may come down the road. You may end up with several decks, different decks that you turn to for different purposes. I have many decks, and some of them are more study decks. Some of them I read with for particular purposes. Some I dedicate more just to my own personal practice. Some are set aside more just for when I'm working with a client. Some are just, came into my life for different reasons. And every deck, no matter how you may end up feeling about it, will be an invitation for you to learn about tarot. So again, very, very classic. Just to kind of give you, again, a feel of a few different types of styles that are out there. My selection is not very, I wouldn't say very diverse and inclusive in terms of body types and culture, but maybe in terms of art style, in terms of just a few that I just kind of randomly pulled. And then I pulled the High Priestess from 6 of these decks, just again, so you would see the same card repeated, but seeing how the imagery can be a little bit different. So here we have this High Priestess. And I'll include notes about which deck is which if you're wanting to maybe procure it for yourself or do a little bit more research. If, you're kind of like lighting up with me like, ooh, I really like that. Now, although all of these are different, there are threads that are unifying all 6 of these depictions. There is a nod to the water element in all 6 of these. There's a nod to the lunar element. In all of these, there is a solitary figure. There's no other human component. There is in some of these like an animal companion. We have the snake, we have the owl. In several of these, we have the book. A book that is, so for example, in both of these depictions, we have the book. We have the water. This reminds me of kind of like a mermaidy, gets very flowy down here at the bottom, and we have the water down here. We have the moon in both. Moon up here as well. Again, solitary figure. Here we have, in both of these, we have like an animal. And we have kind of like this beyond the veil, going from one deep into a next through a veil, right, or through a doorway. So we could do an entire, we could spend hours on talking just about the High Priestess card. And why did I elect the High Priestess card to step forward from all 6 of these decks as a to show you like some of the different art that you may want to start exploring. Frankly, because many tarot readers kind of identify with the High Priestess or want to call in the High Priestess and work with them. The High Priestess is very much can be around mysticism, intuition, retreating, getting very quiet, finding that inner knowing. Lunar energy, again, more this kind of like nighttime quiet within the watery depths. So that's why I wanted to pick one card, and that's from the Major Arcana. And we will be diving into, again, as we do these springboard episodes, diving into, the Major Arcana versus the Minor. There's so many different places that we can go. So now that you have permission to get a deck, resources for finding a deck, and thinking about some of the different art that's out there, your next question is probably going to be like, great, Jess, now I have a deck, now what? Again, speaking of myths, you will probably encounter lots of myths in terms of how you should store your deck, how you should cleanse it, how you should bond with it, how you should or shouldn't shuffle it and begin working with it. So I will be kind of dispelling some of those myths, giving you some springboard ideas of how you can do all of those things, some different routes, kind of like a choose your own adventure in terms of the bonding, the cleansing, the storing, etc. So that you don't miss out on any of these episodes to get you started with your tarot practice, or again, to fall back in love with it, I would highly encourage you, if you're viewing this on YouTube, to subscribe, and to, really important, click the notification bell so that you'll be alerted to when a new episode is released, so that you can be following along and not missing out on any of the information or any of the fun. If you think that this video would serve somebody else, if you have some people in your inner circle that you would love to invite in to fall in love with tarot along with you, it can be really fun to form study groups. So I would invite you again to share this video with people that you think might be interested, because it's really fun to do this in a group setting. I would also personally be beyond honored to read for you or with you. I have lots of offerings where I can be reading for you as a reader. I am a professional reader, and I still get readings from other readers quarterly at least. So, almost everyone who reads and is in the reading community also gets readings from other people. So again, I would be honored to hold space and to read cards for you. I would also be honored to read cards with you. If you are looking for a mentor, if you are looking for some feedback on your spread, or wanting to spend some time diving into anything about your tarot practice to get you started or to fall back in love with it, I'm your person. Reach out to me. You can reach me through DMs, through comments, through email, through my website. However you find me, we can figure out a way to collaborate in that way together. All right, so until next time, tweet, tweet.